What is going on, guys? So today I'm going to talk about which e-bike you should buy. I can relate to being in the situation where I'd never ridden an e-bike before. It was very confusing looking at all the different bikes online. Which one would be suitable? What did they feel like to ride? It could be quite a daunting task if you've not ridden any e-bikes at all before. So I'm going to give you a little bit of my own experience of what I think is good and what I think is bad in the world of e-bikes. Okay, starting off with cheap folding e-bikes, usually Chinese and in the 250 watt range. My own personal view on these is you've probably given up on life. You probably wear Crocs with socks and you probably think CB radio is cool. I mean, if you need something to get from A to B, by all means, get yourself a folding bike. I'm not saying they're not any good, but personally I think there's way better options than folding bikes. Right, moving on to commercially bought mid-drives. And when I say commercially bought, I mean UK legal 250 watt mid-drive e-bikes. Now, there are the really cheap ones you can get. Myself, I would avoid those like the plague. They might be alright and get you going for a little bit. Don't expect too much quality. Don't expect too much performance. You get what you pay for with e-bikes. The more expensive end of it is just such a broad spectrum. They can go for a ridiculous amount of money. They're mostly bought from experience by people with knee injuries. People just want to be out riding for longer and having fun for longer. Don't expect world-changing performance for the money. I get it. People say they've got more torque for going up hills. It's kind of true and it isn't. Mid-drives utilise the gearing by having the motor mounted where the pedals are. So basically as the motor spins, it's directly connected to the gearing cassette at the back. So when you go up and down through the gears, it does give you that extra range of gearing. However, I don't think there's a world of difference from my own personal experience. If you pedal a hub drive and use the gearing, you can still utilise gearing by pedaling and changing gears on a hub drive, which kind of eradicates the gap between a mid-drive and a hub drive. DIY hub drive e-bikes. General value for money and performance, I do not think you can beat a decent hub drive DIY. Honestly, I just don't think you can beat the value. However, there are things I would look out for. There are some really awful brands out there. I do tend to stick to the Andy Kirby kits because I know they're tried and tested. Batteries are very expensive, so you can find some e-bike kits where you've got batteries where the battery cells are filled with sand. Some of them even lie about the amp hour range and the general performance of the battery, so it is a bit of a landmine. The other thing that I like to point out also is that a lot of people try and tell you that hub drives are not good for going off-road. The fact is, guys, unless you're some kind of Sam Pilgrim or you're getting massive airtime, a hub drive is fine. It's good on the streets, it's good on trails. A hub drive is absolutely fine. Okay, moving on to another common bike is one that's been out for quite a long time, and it is the Stealth Bomber. They probably come under various different names. They're very cheap to buy. Honestly, in the real world in England, there's very little use for a Stealth Bomber on the streets if you're worried about getting pulled over by the police or your bike, confiscated. Now, Stealth Bombers are kind of an enduro style bike. If you want to not be bothered by the police and you want an easy life and you want to minimise the risk of your bike getting confiscated or checked, I would avoid getting an enduro style e-bike which looks like a motorbike for kind of urban use, or even just sort of off-road in public woods or parks. I would tend to avoid that kind of style bike because I think it's just going to attract unwanted attention. Okay, whilst we're on the subject of enduro bikes, let's talk about Sur-Rons. Sur-Rons have become massively popular in the last couple of years as a pre-built, relatively cheap, I don't know if I'd say high performance, they're not that high performance in standard guys, but they have become incredibly popular all over the world. I don't know, I don't get it. I don't get why they're so popular. I mean, they're all right, they're a good bike, but in England, they are massively getting the reputation of a drug dealer bike and a bike for chavs. I seem to see a lot of vloggers buying them and using them to do really boring videos, if I'm honest, about just popping wheelies. Maybe I'm jealous I don't know how to wheelie. Maybe that's what it is, but I don't get it. I don't get the fascination with literally buying one and popping wheelies and just doing videos of popping wheelies. If you like selling drugs or popping wheelies, then get a Sur-Ron.
This is a Swytch bike.
Another one that you cannot escape in England, you see it advertised popping up on YouTube adverts, is the Swytch bike. I'm going to say I've not actually used or ridden a Swytch bike, but the whole concept of getting a fucking great bag, big ugly black satchel, and sticking it on your handlebars, just don't. You don't really want that massive bag on your hat. Like, why? They look terrible. Just avoid, guys. Minus opinion, someone wants to send me a Swytch kit to test, by all means, but they look fucking awful. The bags on the front of the handlebars have got to be terrible for looks, they've got to be terrible for handling. They can't be very good range because the weight of a decent battery on the handlebars would just be terrible. It's a terrible place to have that much weight mounted that high up on something which you use for controlling the manoeuvrability of your bike. So avoid the Swytch bike, guys. So let's summarising, guys, what is available on the market, the most common styles of bike. I think that hub drive DIY conversions are probably going to suit the majority of people the best. I think they represent the best value for money. They're smooth, they're quiet. Like for like hub drives and mid drives, don't get wrapped up in that argument. For like power, hub drives and mid drives, there is not a lot in it, honestly. Don't get wrapped up in that argument. Don't get wrapped up in the unsprung weight argument, unless you're Sam Pilgrim and you're hitting like massive air gaps, which majority of us are not. A hub drive will be absolutely fine for most people's needs. As regards to like the stealth bomber style enduro bikes, I personally would say the majority of people should avoid them in the UK. They don't look like street legal mountain bikes or e-bikes. They're going to attract unwanted attention from the police. And the other thing that I would also point out is they kind of give the appearance of being, you know, dirt bikes, but I've no doubt they can go off-road. They're not going to have the performance of a motocross bikes in terms of, I've ridden a few enduro style e-bikes and they just don't have the geometry. I used to ride a little bit of motocross and it just doesn't feel anything like a motocross bike. It looks like one. So I can see why some people will be like, oh yeah, I'm going to get a stealth bomber because they think it's going to perform like a motocross bike, and it doesn't really. Unless you are sticking your bike in the back of a van and going to do some actual, you know, free riding, cross country, trail riding, some, you know, remote parts, then that's ideal for that, but that's not going to be many people. Honestly, if I just group together things like Swytch bikes, folding bikes, it's not really my cup of tea. If you just want something cheap and cheerful and you don't really care how it looks, you know, I'm not a massive fan of the appearance of most of these. I think they look a bit lame. If you want something cheap and cheerful that's going to be a bit easier than pedaling, you don't have a huge budget, by all means go down that route. I can't say with any confidence of how long they'll last or how long before you wish you'd spent more money to get slightly better performance. I do think the majority of people need to get something mountain bike based, whether it's mid-drive or hub drive. Honestly, just don't even get involved in the argument. They're both good. People are very quick to judge Chinese brands. There is a lot of bad stuff, but there is also a lot of good stuff out there that is Chinese. Again, most of the shop bought stuff is going to be limited. You know, if you get a shop bought 250 watt bike kit, a lot of people get those de-restricted and they do perform a lot better. Anyway, I hope you guys found that useful. Don't forget to like and comment and subscribe if you're not already. Helps the channel massively. Fast approaching 5,000 subscribers. Hopefully I'll be there soon, and I can, you know, as the channel grows, I can feature bigger and better things, bigger and better projects, which is great. And yeah, hope you guys had a good Christmas, and I will catch you guys in a video soon. Take it easy.